All righty. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're here for Project Echo, the best practices of aging care delivered to you by the University of Louisville Traeger Institute and the Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities. My name is Pam Yankilove, and I'm the Director of Research and Evaluation at the Traeger Institute. Just a few little technology tips. We ask that you go on and turn on your video if you at all possibly can. It helps with creating a community of learners. If you have any difficulty with your sound, just go on and click on that little caret in the lower left-hand corner to go on and check your microphone. And if you have difficulty with your computer or your smart device, please go on and join us via the phone. And you can go on and take a picture of the phone number and the meeting ID if you're using the Zoom app on your phone. Project Echo is a collaboration between the University of Louisville Traeger Institute and the Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities. So we thought for some of you guys who are not familiar with the Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities, we could go through their mission and vision. So I was wondering if Mona Huff would be willing to jump on and share.
Certainly will. Welcome, everybody. Our coalition our hope is to be able to create community support systems for older adults in partnership with our existing local coalitions and organizations. And we really try to get out into our counties and our rural counties for sure to make sure that happens. We want to develop the workforce and concerned community members to empower our communities to become healthier. And that is a big portion of what we do with the KCHC, is to try to get facilitators that can help us work out into the communities for doing health classes, as well as working alongside other coalitions and the health department and those kind of entities. So again, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Mona. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Project Echo, it was developed about 15 years ago by Sanjay Arora, who is an MD and a hepatitis C expert. And he was having, most of his patients were driving like 200 to 300 miles to come see him because of his expertise. And he really didn't think that that was a great way of being able to create local capacity. So what he decided to do was create this platform called Project Echo. It's a telementoring platform in which the idea is to move knowledge, not patients. So building capacity at the local level, whether it be in rural communities or underserved medically underserved communities. There's a rhythm to every Project Echo. It begins with a didactic, then we have a case, and then we have recommendations. And the goal of our Project Echo is to teach best practices in interdisciplinary team-based care when we're focusing on older adults. So the KCHC focuses on kind of the macro, how we're going to take the information today and bring it out in the community, and the case is more micro focused. So between the two of them, we're going to be able to work on our clinical care and our care in the community. We do ask to help us take attendance by going on to typing your name and your organization in the chat. It also helps those of us that are in here today to get a sense of who is our fellow learners. We also ask that if you haven't done so yet, that you go on and add your name under your video square. The way you can do that is you go on and click on the little 3 dots in your video square, and there's a dialog box that comes down. You click on rename, and you can go on and put your name and your organization in there as well. Thank you. I see all those coming in to the chat. All righty. And if you would like a certificate of attendance, we do have a survey that's going to be a poll that's going to be occurring at the end of our session. And you'll just want to stay on and make sure that you go on and complete the poll. And at that time, you'll let us know if you are interested in having a certificate, and we'll make sure that those certificates get to you. We are so excited to have Nikki Henderson with us today. Nikki is going to be presenting on We Should Not Neglect, addressing neglect of older adults. But before we go on and get into that, I'd like to go on and share a little bit about Nikki. So Nikki Henderson was in law enforcement for over 40 years, working for Jefferson County Police Department, which later merged to form the Louisville Metro Police Department. During this time, she started the Crimes Against Seniors Unit, which investigated crimes targeting people 65 years and older, and worked on the committee that developed the Kentucky elder abuse laws in early 2000. After retirement, Nikki enrolled at the Kent School of Social Work and Family Science. In 2006, Nikki graduated with a master's in social work and was in the inaugural class of students who earned a specialization in gerontology. After graduation, she worked with the Kentucky Attorney General's office to investigate Medicaid fraud and abuse and neglect in Medicaid and Medicare funded facilities such as nursing homes. She has taught social gerontology and social work practices for older adults at the University of Louisville Kent School of Social Work and Family Science for almost 10 years. And we are delighted to have Nikki here to share all of your wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam. I appreciate that. Okay, when we work with older adults, one thing we need to be aware of is neglect. We hope that our older adults are safe from harm and have a quality of life. However, some older adults become neglected. First of all, let's figure out what is neglect. I've given you the definition from Webster, which is to give little attention or respect to. However, as professionals working with older adults, we're going to look at the definition in the Kentucky Revised Statutes, the KRS, because that will have the definition that we work for. Definition of neglect in the KRS means a situation in which an adult is unable to perform or obtain for himself or herself the goods or services that are necessary to maintain his or her health or welfare, or the deprivation of services by a caretaker that are necessary to maintain the health and welfare of an adult. Because someone who neglects an older person can be criminally charged, is why we use these definitions in the law. Self-neglect. Again, this is another definition. These are all in the KRS. We come across people who aren't neglected. They're self-neglecting. As an adult, we can do whatever we choose to do. We can eat what we want. We can dress how we want. We can take a bath if we want. So when should someone be concerned about this? And that is when there is potential harm. Signs of neglect. It's sad to see food insecurities with our elderly, almost everybody now, but especially our elderly. The chances are not that they're not eating a balanced diet or likely to be malnourished. I know as far as dehydration, my mom used to not drink a lot of water. And I would say, Mom, drink some water. She said, I'm not thirsty. Well, older adults need those cues sometimes to drink, and it's easy for them to become dehydrated. Another thing is lack of medical aids like glasses, dentures, canes, walkers. They don't have those abilities. As far as dentures, I remember my mom had dentures back when she was young and never got them refitted. And most people have, if they do have dentures, they're ill-fitted and they can't eat properly, so they don't get the nutrition. So, and I don't think insurance or Medicare or Medicaid, they don't even deal with dentures and dentistry. And those are things that are very important to somebody's health. Inadequate or improper clothing. They don't have the ability to be out. They probably have poor mobility, which is hard for them to clean their homes or themselves. Untreated medical conditions. Some of them don't even go to the doctor, or if they do, it's during an emergency visit. They don't have the diagnoses to know what they need to be treated for, so they don't have medication. So there's so many things that can happen because of self-neglect. Caretaker. Since we're going to talk about neglect, we have to talk about a caretaker, which is an individual or institution who has been entrusted with or who has the responsibility for the care of an adult as a result of family relationship, or who has assumed the responsibility for the care of the adult person voluntarily or by contract, employment, legal duty, or agreement. This is the other type of neglect that is prevalent in working with older adults, caretaker neglect. In Kentucky, we have paid caregivers like facilities, in-home health, and we also have unpaid caregivers, which fall under like family members, neighbors, friends, whoever assumes the responsibility of care. And this all falls under the Kentucky Revised Statute, which again is a law. The reason that we go and have the definition of caretaker neglect, and again, this takes the combination of neglect and caretaker, is because this is a charge that someone or a facility could be charged with for improper care of someone. So that's why we need to know all these definitions, because it is a chargeable offense. Signs of caretaker neglect. There's older adults versus children. Children are so much easier to find neglect because you have so many eyes on them, multiple eyes throughout the day. Older adults don't have that luxury. A lot of them are not in public view. They can be isolated from friends and families. So people aren't seeing that. Other signs of caretaker neglect, again, improper food, nutrition, so they could be malnourished, have a weight loss, feelings of hopelessness, fearfulness, or depression. I know COVID did a really number on depression, not just with older adults, with everybody, but that is something that older adults, being alone, they, and I think it's undiagnosed in a lot of situations, is the depression. Disorientation or cognitive problems, a lack of nutrition, medication, UTIs can all affect people's cognitive ability as well. Difficulty managing finances. In this situation, they don't have the ability to pay their bills. If they might get someone to help them, we might be talking about a family member or somebody that comes in and takes care of their bills. We might start seeing a financial exploitation situation in that. So sometimes when you deal with caretaker neglect, there might be other forms of abuse as well. Uncleanliness and sanitary conditions, bed sores. Let me tell you about bed sores, because just having a bed sore does not mean neglect. You see these, I guess they're commercials of nursing home attorneys that are trying to tell you if you have a loved one with a bed sore, then we could prosecute them. That's not always true, because people's nutrition or their medical diagnoses, their circulation, they can get bed sores. They can be inevitable and they're being taken care of. And sometimes bed sores happen anyway, and they're being taken care of, they're being cleaned. That does not mean neglect. So be careful when you're looking at bed sores or have somebody tell you, you know, my mother has a bed sore at the nursing home and it must be neglect. It must not, it's not always neglect. If an older person tells you they're being mistreated, listen to them and believe them, because a lot of them won't tell you. They're embarrassed. It's a family member. They don't want to get somebody in trouble, or they're ashamed, or they could be threatened. But if someone does tell you they're being neglected, please listen to them. Kentucky is a mandatory reporting state. That means that if someone suspects abuse, neglect, or exploitation, and that it's happening, then they're legally obligated to report it. If you see something, you say something. You don't need to have evidence or proof of anything. There's no repercussions if nothing comes out of it for someone that's reporting it, so don't worry about any repercussions. Reporting can be anonymous, but it can be helpful to have a name and a phone number just so the worker can call back and get more information, and to follow up, maybe something was unclear, to be helpful in the investigation. And they'll never divulge the complainant's information. That's anonymous. That's what that means. Complaints are reported. You can report them to your supervisor. There are many agencies that receive these complaints, usually Adult Protective Service. is the clearinghouse for all the reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. They take all the initial complaints, and here's who investigates those. The Adult Protective Service mainly focuses on the victim, the older person, for neglect. They want to help them and get services and get them out of that situation. So Adult Protective Service deals with the victim or the older adult. Law enforcement, they focus on the perpetrator because Adult Protective Service is dealing with the victim or the older adult. Law enforcement is going to look at the allegation of a suspected abuser, and they're going to deal with that. If it's whether a prosecution to go to court, that's what they focus on. There's an ombudsman in nursing homes that take all the complaints that you have as a resident. So they're very helpful to get reports from them on what they're being reported to. The Office of Inspector General, they're concerned with the perpetrator or the facility as a situation. You know, in Medicare.gov, you can go in and look up a nursing home and see how they're rated. It tells all their surveys and gets all their reports. So if you get a complaint to an inspector general about a facility, they will look into that, and it might be where they punish the nursing home in some way. They might give them some kind of penalty, but their focus is on that because they know Adult Protective Service is looking at the victim, and if there's a perpetrator, law enforcement is working at that. The OAG is a law enforcement agency, and they will look at the caretaker of any Medicare or Medicaid facility, and they will do, as law enforcement, they will focus on the perpetrator of those crimes of neglect. One thing I do want to say is, talking about law enforcement, and Pam mentioned this in the beginning, we started the Crimes Against Seniors unit, and we had this for years, and it helped in the Louisville area as far as all the crimes that were reported on older people 65 and older. However, during COVID, I was informed that they eliminated that unit because of manpower shortage. So I'm really concerned about who takes these complaints now. I really don't know, and I have no answer for you. Now, this is the stats that I received from the cabinet. It was from 2016 to 2021 to kind of give you an overview of the reporting. The top number in 2016, 2,713, are the number of calls that met the criteria for caretaker neglect. There were plenty more calls that came in, but 2,713 actually met the criteria on ones they would look at. The bottom number shows you the substantiated cases. That means there was enough information to show there was a victim, there was an abuser, or someone that was neglectful. So as far as prosecutions, I have no idea on that. I don't know if there's even a number for those, but it's very, very small, actually, what is prosecuted of those cases. But the fact that the victim or the older adult is being taken care of and they're out of that situation is what's very important. I've also included on this line, and most of you know this number, the Child or Adult Abuse Hotline. That's a number to call. But Team Kentucky website is also listed on this slide. This is where, and I think it's been the last 2 years, or this is the first full year, that they have started extrapolating all their reports online through this website, and it is an anonymous website as well. So there's 2 ways to report these caretaker neglect cases. And we put in here the sample of when you open up the website, this is what you're going to see. And we can only go so far because you have to enter information. But when you first open up the website, you will click on Notice of Terms, and you'll have to put in that code to go in to continue. And then when you get to the next, this tells you all the information that you need to know. And then this is the slide. This is the third slide. This is where you have to enter all the information. And then you continue on and you'll see at the top where it goes on to where it's actually recorded and sent on. I want to show you I don't think that's the beginning of it, Justin, but we had a prosecution of a caretaker neglect case. It was one of the first ones in Kentucky in 2005. And I want to show you this case from how it started to how it ended. And this is a news clip. It's only a few minutes.
In the past, it has been rare for cases of elder abuse to result in criminal charges, but that is changing. Police and prosecutors are now looking at crimes against seniors in a new light. An alleged case of abuse against an 84-year-old woman has led to a rarely prosecuted charge: knowing abuse or neglect of an adult by a caretaker. The August 2000 police run to this apartment was routine. Check on someone who may have fallen and was calling for help.
When they found her, she was like 50 or 60 pounds.
Photographs taken by investigators document what shocked officers found. Laura Lyons, an 84-year-old skeleton of a woman, was alone in her bed, clothed in a dirty diaper and covered with feces and open sores. She could not reach her wheelchair, which was in the living room, and there was little food in her kitchen.
She looked like she'd been someone in a concentration camp.
Sergeant Nikki Henderson's Crimes Against Seniors unit led an investigation into Laura Lyons' condition. An in-depth medical evaluation indicates that in recent years, increasing medical problems and dementia had affected Lyons' ability to properly care for herself. But the same report, which includes examination photos, blames Sharon Frank, a caregiver who took control in August of 2000, for drastically worsening Lyons' condition by failing to attend to her medical, nutrition, and hygiene needs.
We started investigating with Adult Protective Service and started collecting information and interviewing and documenting and got a very good case.
In December of 2001, Sharon Frank was indicted on the rarely used charge of abuse and neglect of an adult by a caretaker.
So you would charge cases that involve lack of nutrition and that sort of thing, lack of medical care under that statute.
Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney Todd Lewis admits there are challenges to proving Sharon Frank is guilty. Laura Lyons is not mentally sharp enough to testify for the prosecution, and there's a question of why a person would become a caregiver, then intentionally neglect the person they volunteered to help.
Unfortunately, the large majority of them, if you look into them, they've got money behind them somewhere.
The charge of financial exploitation of an adult points to a possible motive. Documents in the court file indicate Frank moved Lyons out of her home, discarded her possessions, and began remodeling Lyons' house, which she expected to obtain upon Lyons' death. Other records indicate Frank may have sold some of Lyons' belongings and spent some of her Social Security income.
My client is not willing to enter a plea of guilty to any criminal offense contained in the indictment. So that's
Sharon Frank and her attorney, Frank Muscagni, declined on-camera interviews. Muscagni describes Frank as a caring woman who tried to help Laura Lyons, but Lyons refused to eat properly or cooperate with Frank's efforts to assist her.
Let's set this thing for trial in 2 weeks, and we won't even have this contest. Let's just set it for trial.
Add the court system to institutions who do not give elder abuse much priority. Nearly 2 years after charges were filed, the system has been unable to block off enough time for a trial. Latest trial date, next summer. No matter how or when this case is settled, Laura Lyons is definitely in a better place. Through state intervention, Lyons has lived in a nursing home since her rescue. While her dementia has not improved, I'm told Lyons seems content, has doubled her weight, and her physical condition has greatly improved. Dick Irby, Fox 41 News.
like I said, this was one of the first prosecutions of caretaker neglect and the exploitation in Kentucky. Sharon Frank did serve 8 years in prison, and she was prosecuted by Todd Lewis, the attorney prosecutor that you saw in the film clip. She went to court when there was sentencing, and she asked for shock probation, and the judge denied it. And he said in court, "You're going where they will take better care of you than you did for Miss Lyons." And this is really a emotional case, because when you see Miss Lyons and when she was at the nursing home, she always had a smile. The workers loved her. She was probably about 136 pounds in that picture from what you did see her. So to me, that's probably the most successful case that I can even imagine that we have dealt with. But we were lucky on that. And it's rare to ever prosecute. And the one thing I can say about the news media, anytime you have any cases that are prosecuted, they need to be shown on the news media so that it shows people, it acts as a deterrent, that you can't treat older adults like that or you'll be prosecuted. So that's why I really think the media is very helpful at times. But there are barriers to neglect as well. You saw in the last 2 years we had COVID, so we weren't seeing our older adults. I did hear that the stats on reports are coming up. They're getting more in 2022, so hopefully we'll be back to normal in getting our older adults identified if they're being neglected. Sometimes the older adult refuses, or they're unable to report, or they don't even know they're being neglected. They think that's how they're supposed to live. So unless somebody neutral sees what's happening, they don't get reported. The caregiver refuses to allow older adults to talk to others. Always try to talk to the older adult alone, by themselves, without a caretaker, because sometimes the presence of the caregiver will threaten the older adult. Maybe they have been threatened to where they're not going to talk. Sometimes people will call for the older adult and the caregiver will say, "Oh, they're not feeling well," or "They're asleep." That should be a red flag every time if you hear that all the time. So those are barriers that could identify neglect. The older adult is isolated from others. We also see caregivers that are older adult spouses that are not intentionally neglecting their loved ones, but they're old and they're neglectful themselves. And we don't look at that as criminal at all. They need services badly. So if you know of older adults that live alone, they need to be looked on too to see if maybe they're being neglected. We just don't see all the neglected, but when we do, we need to act.
Nikki,
Yes.
this is Becky Smith.
Becky.
Can I talk about one of your other cases at where you could not reach the older adult?
Absolutely.
This is one that I think happened after you left the Crimes Against Seniors unit, but this lady was in the hospital. She needed continuing care, and a son who had been absolutely absent from her life appeared and agreed to take her home with him. And he did, and the hospital was thrilled. Everybody was happy. She had been a very active member in her church. And so the pastor had seen her at the hospital, and then quickly after that became involved in trying to find her at the son's house. And he was not able to reach her. At first, it just seemed, well, okay, she's not doing so well, but she's sick. She doesn't want to talk. Maybe the son is busy, but suddenly that minister became very suspicious, and finally ended up calling for help. And the end of it was that the son had taken her to his house. He had put her in his basement where she could not get out. And she had been forced to sign papers where everything was turned over to him, and she had absolutely nothing left. And she was a prisoner in the basement. It was the minister who blew the whistle at that point. I spoke to a group of young pastor students, scared the living daylights out of them with that story. But I think it's important to realize that the average person out there just doing their job can sometimes spot something that nobody else would have ever known until she was dead.
Anybody can report. It's whatever you have this gut feeling or there's a red flag. Again, there's no repercussions if you report it and nothing comes of it, but it's better safe than sorry to make sure people are aware to look into it, because they don't have the, sometimes they just don't have anybody else to take care of them.
Right. And Laura Lyons never, ever accepted the fact that Sharon Frank was not treating her right. She always defended that caregiver, even as she went to prison. One other one was when we were out in the East End, and there was a woman of privilege. There was a lot of money involved, and the son, well, not too far out in the East End, he was a drug dealer and he was living in her house. She went to the hospital and ultimately to the nursing home, but he remained in the house where he was dealing drugs. The Crimes Against Seniors unit was very involved in that one, and we were able to catch him with some things, and then he ended up doing 8 years in Eddyville. I love to tell people that sometimes 8 years in Eddyville is what you're going to get when you abuse an older person. It's nice to know that the system did work.
It does work.
I don't know how it's working now, but it did work.
I know, but it does. It can.
Mhm.
So that's why we need to keep trying.
Yes.
Let me go back to self-neglect, some things that can help for self-neglect. Again, you have the self-determination where you can refuse services if you want, but there are services and resources out there, such as the churches, Catholic charities, food pantries, food stamps. They love Meals on Wheels. Anything to help them with nutrition, give them the food that they need, that does help. Adult Protective Service, they know their area, they know the resources and services, and that would be helpful for people that are self-neglecting. But there could be a time when their guardianship is necessary, and Becky knows a lot about guardianship. I think, Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, Kentucky is the only state that has jury trials for guardianship. I think that's the case.
That has changed. A few years ago, it was decided that if everybody involved is willing to forego a trial and comes to agreement on what should happen, then there does not need to be a jury trial. It can simply be a bench trial. But
Okay,
that
so they
happened
can
not too long ago.
Okay.
I don't like it, but in another way, it's pretty good because there was a lot of wasted time in trials for people who simply did not need to have a lot of proof in the courtroom.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, in guardianship, you could be issued full guardian, or it could be partial guardian. So you might not have to lose all your privileges. It depends on what your needs are. And then there could be family members that wasn't aware of the neglect issue. So there are solutions for self-neglect. And some solutions for caretaker neglect. Again, the most of this is going to be reporting. Adult Protective Service always, because they are the clearinghouse for all the reports. Get law enforcement if you think that crime has been committed. They might be involved. Guardianship might be involved in order to take some responsibilities for someone to help the older adult. Social services, they might just need medical attention. It might come to a point where you just need to live in a facility, or a nursing home or assisted living facility. That just might be the last stage, but sometimes they can't be cared for at their home and they have to go for proper care. Neglect should not be neglected. It's self-neglect or caretaker neglect. We should always look for signs of those. We need to look for them. If you have a red flag on something, report it, report to authorities. It could be the hotline. I've given you the number for that. It could be Team Kentucky website, but report the neglect to authorities and develop a plan with older adults and implement that plan. We want our older adults to have the best life that they can.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for that information, for the definitions, for how to report, our call to action as it relates to if we suspect neglect. Such important information. We are going to be sharing this presentation with those individuals who have come to this particular Project ECHO and those that have registered and weren't able to join us. We We actually have a case, I think, that might bring a lot of what you discussed to light. And so we usually are allowed time for questions, but I'm so glad you shared that powerful video and that Becky was able to add some additional pieces there. So I think what we're going to go on and do is maybe hold off on questions. If people have specific questions for Nikki, maybe they could put them in the chat. But I think what we'd like to do is, Nikki, I hope you can stay with us.
I'll stay.
Okay, good, because I think we're going to go into the phase now of the case presentation, and we can talk about how we might be able to apply some of the information if we think that it's relevant. The recommendations are going to be collected by Dr. Samantha Cotton. Thank you, Samantha. And we have a presentation. We have Kayla Watkins, who's an intern at the Traeger Institute, who's going to be presenting a case today. I don't know if Katie Karcher is also available. Kayla,
Yes,
when you are ready, you are welcome to begin.
Okay, so the overview of our patient is that the patient has severe dementia, has disorganized thoughts, magical thinking, and cognitive impairment. The patient has 6 kids and does not want them to interfere, like she doesn't want to interfere with their lives. She wishes to live independently, but currently lives with her daughter and sleeps on an air mattress. And this is in like the dining room. The patient thinks medical problems are due to voodoo or having a curse put on her, and believes family and physicians are keeping details of her health from her. The patient is not adherent to her medications. Her health conditions may begin to improve if adherence could be addressed. So one of the questions we have are, what are your thoughts on the patient living in her own apartment in close proximity to the daughter, or living in a long-term care facility? And then the second question was, what could we say to this patient to encourage her to participate in mental health counseling?
This patient is 78 years old. She's a female. And like Katie said, she currently lives on an air mattress in her daughter's living room. These are all of her diagnoses and health conditions. The ones that we've seen are, she has like a bladder problem, overactive bladder. She has dementia and like high blood pressure as well. She's 5'2" and weighs 82 pounds. I guess the background information, this patient, she has good vision and she's flourishing in her sexual problems, but with her cognition and frail, like she's frail and poor oral health. She hasn't been to the dentist in over a year, I believe. Nutrition, hearing, and fatigue, she's not flourishing in. This patient is served at Traeger Optimal Aging Clinic. Her notes mentioned that she doesn't take her medication. She's very confused. This patient has 6 kids, but they do not come around a lot, and she does not want to interfere with their lives. Currently, we're working on chronic care management with her and trying to find her housing, which is the first thing that she wants. She wants to move out of her daughter's house. She wants to live on her own. There's no other health problems that she's experiencing. She feels as though like living with her daughter and her son, that she's in their way, that she's like an extra burden to them. Her daughter expressed that that's not the case. She doesn't mind that her mother's living there, but that's how the mother feels. So.
And then for social, so the client needs help with education, advanced directive, power of attorney, transportation, and economic stability. The patient's daughter helps her with IADLs, and her daughter helps her with groceries and drives her to appointments. However, the daughter does not stay for the appointments, and she makes the visit unhelpful to the provider because the patient is unable to name medications taken and give a clear linear history. The patient's daughter is her power of attorney. However, this patient does not have an advance directive. So there was an incident that happened at the clinic the last time the patient came there. and no one was there to pick her up initially. And she was very confused and she was irate. And so they had to call the ambulance on her. Dr. Furman suggested they call the ambulance. And when the ambulance got there, she had called someone else to pick her up, and they like pulled up on the sidewalk, and she ran out the door and jumped in the car with them and wouldn't go to the hospital. So now when she comes to the clinic, she has to have someone that is going to stay with her the whole time, and they can't leave, or she cannot be at the clinic. So she doesn't want to come to our clinic anymore. She wants to go to the one that's down the street. I think it's like HCO or something.
Mhm.
According to this patient, she feels lonely and unsatisfied with life. Despite the fact that she says she needs the medication that she's taking, she does not believe that she can do anything else. Even though she wishes to live on her own, she's believed to have severe dementia. And so there are concerns about her safety. She believes her medical diagnoses are due to roots and voodoo, and she thinks she is cursed. She is paranoid of people around her, such as like physicians and her daughter. Patient is widowed and lives with her daughter and sleeps in the living room on an air mattress. And with the voodoo and roots, it's not like a psychological thing. I think it's more of a cultural. I believe she said her grandmother is taught her that stuff. She's from down south, and so she just believes. Her grandmother was really into like making like those like potions and things to like you can drink to heal yourselves, and so she believes that her bladder and incontinence issues are because someone close to her put a curse or put roots on her. She thinks that that's the cause for that. And she always says like, be careful who you like talk to or who's around you and stuff like that. So that's what she believes. And says that she's only taken 3 of her medications. She's not taking her incontinence pills, the ones that make her like go to the bath, like help her from going to the bathroom every few seconds. She said that medication makes her dizzy. So that's the medication that she says she's not taking, and I believe a couple others.
Okay, this patient is flourishing in smoking, drug use, alcohol use, and opioid risk. She is not flourishing in exercise, medical adherence, and healthy eating habits. The patient does not exercise, and she forgets to take her medicine often. The patient is unable to name one medication that she is taking, and if she is taking any at all. The daughter picks up her medication, however, this is the extent of the help she gives. She does not ensure that her mother takes her medication. Although we did a home visit yesterday, and the daughter said that she has been giving the patient her medication every day, like she's supposed to. So right now, that's what the daughter told us is going on right now. So we've heard otherwise before in the past, but supposedly right now she is giving her the medication.
Okay, this patient is flourishing in access to regular source of care, access to medication, access to mental health services. Like I said before, she hasn't been to the dentist in a while, and she's dissatisfied with her overall experience with healthcare. In the past few years, this patient has not been to the dentist since she no longer receives care at the clinic. She has been unable to schedule an appointment to fix her mouth and teeth problems. Despite her dissatisfaction with her overall healthcare, she does like her primary care provider. This patient is flourishing in both falls hazards and home safety. We did a home visit yesterday, like Katie said, and there's no like risk for falls, like no rugs everywhere. She does live on an air mattress, like in the corner in the living room, but the apartment's clean. There's no like, there's plenty of space in the apartment. She has her own little area, but that's about it. There's no gas appliances in the home, and there's also no means there's no carbon monoxide detector, but she does have a fire detector.
And so she was at ULH, but I I think she's going, it's still with the University of Louisville, but it's a different office on Chestnut is where she wants to go now. So she has regular checkups, but she's been missing her appointments here lately because I asked the front desk yesterday and she's missed her last 3 appointments. She was in the ER a few weeks ago and she hasn't been in for a checkup since then. And so me and Kayla are her navigators and we're trying to find housing for her, and we have helped her apply for food stamps. And then she wants to find housing first before getting any kind of dental assistance or anything like that. Like, the only thing she's worried about is housing right now. So we're trying to figure out what we need to do for her in the housing situation, because she wants to live on her own by herself in an apartment, but we feel like she needs to be in a facility somewhere. So we're going back and forth on that with her. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Kayla and Katie. I neglected to say that Katie and, oh, you guys are still doing the medication review. Yes, go on and do that as well.
These are just all the medications that were on her chart that she stated that she should be taking, or that. But she did say that her last visit to the hospital, she had a medication bag, but then she doesn't have it anymore. So all these medications are gone. She only has 3 medications that her daughter says she's taking. And I believe that's her like memory, dementia pills. And I don't know that, she has her Aquaphor treatment for her petroleum gel.
And the high blood pressure medicine.
And her high blood pressure medicine.
And she takes Tylenol every once in a while when she needs it.
Okay. Right.
And so just the overview again, she wishes to live independently, but she currently lives with her daughter and sleeps on a very skinny air mattress on the floor. She thinks all of her medical problems are due to voodoo or having a curse put on her. And she believes her physicians and family is keeping details of her health from her. She's not adhering to her medications, and which I think is a problem with when she wants to live on her own. But we have a question. The 2 questions are, what are your thoughts on the patient living in her own apartment in close proximity to her daughter, so that way her daughter can still come and help her, or just having her live in a long-term care facility? And what could we say to this patient to encourage her to participate in mental health counseling?
All righty. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, this time what we're going to do is we're going to go on and consider the questions as well as possible recommendations. This is a community in that we all bring unique wisdom and guidance to this particular case. So you can do it in the chat. You can also unmute and share any ideas that you have regarding the housing arrangements, is what I think individuals wanted to, or Katie and Kayla wanted us to comment on. Was there anything, before we go on and begin there, was there anything that would suggest that you're concerned about her being in the corner of the apartment? Is it a function of there's not enough space? Is there concern about the mattress? Is it a function of being incontinent? Is that just her choice? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
We just think that it's just the air mattress. She has plenty of space, and she has 2 side tables set up on each side. It's almost like it's her little bedroom area, and it's nice, but for her age, we feel like that she should be, she should have a bed. So I don't know. It's just a really hard case because we've heard different, we got this, she was picked up from us from 2 other Fuller's Care Navigators from before, and we heard completely different stories from them as to what we've saw now. And so that's what makes the case harder, because the way that it was described to us before, it was like a very awful living situation. She didn't eat, nobody gave her medication and stuff like that. So we've been doing home visits here lately, and it doesn't seem to me like it's that bad. It's a nice place, but she does sleep on the air mattress on the floor, and the daughter says that she gives her medicine. I don't know if she didn't in the past, but she's obviously not taking it correctly at times, or something's going on, because when she's been to the ER now twice for her blood pressure being very, very high. So somebody's not giving her that medication. and they think that maybe the daughter's just being nice to us and telling us these things when we come over, or something like that is going on. We don't know yet. We don't know what to do.
Okay, all righty. So any colleagues in the room would like to suggest and offer something to our Flourish Care navigators?
Dee has raised her hand.
Dee.
Yeah, I was just going to comment about the medications. So obviously there's a lot going on there. If she's either going into the hospital for high blood pressure because she's not getting her blood pressure medications, or that bladder medication is raising her blood pressure, which it could, and it's an extremely aggressive dose of bladder medication that pretty much is in conflict with her blood pressure. And then the thing about bladder medication you have to consider is after 4 or 5 months, most people quit because it doesn't really work. And a lot of times the family, even the patients, they're wed to the idea that this pill's going to fix it. But bladder incontinence is complicated. She should see a urologist to make sure that there's no physical problem. And if there isn't, then it's a matter of bladder training. And of course, it could be because of her, if she has dementia or not think to go to the bathroom on time. Then what you do is what they call time toileting. Like you make sure somebody goes every so often, and then their bladder's empty and they don't get incontinent. The other thing I wanted to point out about medications is that, as you know, they could be a source of abuse in a couple of ways. Sometimes people give medications to keep people sleepy and kind of out of their way. The interesting thing about memantine, which is the dementia drug, is that it is a drug of abuse. And you wouldn't think so, but it's related to ketamine. And so it has a street value. So sometimes caregivers, steal it and sell it because it has a street value. Not knowing the family. It sounds like the family's trying, I guess, but just keep all those things in mind.
Very good points. Thank you. Yes, I think they're Melissa Hopkins. Would you like to turn on your mic? And
sure. I had a couple of thoughts about the medications as well. Someone in chat mentioned one of the timed medication management systems, I think is what they're talking about. And that might be an option, but if she's not going to take it from her daughter, she's not going to take it from one of those. So you could possibly look at a home health referral to see if they could do some training for the daughter to do directly observed therapy, similar to what they do in public health for communicable disease medications like tuberculosis meds. Another thing that I thought of, and this may respect her culture as well as help solve some of the problems, is to see if her primary doctor could partner with a homeopathic physician, because they are going to look at more maybe traditional medications or traditional supplements that this individual may be more comfortable with, and may speak to her cultural beliefs more so than just referring her to doctor after doctor after doctor. Now, that's not to say that I don't think she needs a urologist, but if there was a homeopathic doctor that could talk to her about supplements and stuff on a level that she feels comfortable with, then we might be able to do a partnership and do like a multidisciplinary team that she may learn to trust a little better. And that's also depending on how advanced her dementia symptoms are.
Okay, thank you. And then Becky, I think.
I hate to throw cold water on a lot of things, but the reality is there's one piece that I didn't see, I didn't recollect any mention of, and that's financial status.
Right.
All of these are great ideas, all the medications, all the possibilities about an apartment certainly should be considered. But if she is on Medicaid, or I'm sure if Medicaid or her own health insurance, that really needs to be front and center, because most of the things that may be discussed are not even going to be available to her. And the idea of moving to an apartment on her own may initially sound like it's less expensive, but there are so many additional costs added on that it would be a very difficult thing for her to function in her own place.
So in the chat, I think Katie let us know that she gets $865 a month on Social Security.
Okay. Does she have Medicaid or Medicare or both?
She dual? She is she's
she?
dual. Is that yes, Katie? Okay.
Okay.
So she gets
Well,
Medicaid.
that's a start. That's got to be up front and center before you even begin to think about a lot of the other things, because that's a limiting factor in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Have you asked her about why it is that, what is it that she wants from living alone versus what she thinks it's like living in a nursing home? Is it just closeness to the daughter?
She just said that she wants to have her own space and not feel like she's intruding on her daughter and her daughter's family. And I think there's been other family members that said that she could live with them, but she does not want to live with any of them. Like every time we go over there, she just says, I want my own place. I want to get out now. And she's like, the 2 navigators I had before, they knew all this and they never found me a place. And, you know, she said, so I'm going to try to work with you guys again. And I'm just hoping that you all will be able to find me a place this time. So we were thinking maybe like a low income housing unit apartment, or the daughter, I talked to the daughter about if she was to go into like a memory care, like independent living nursing home. And the daughter said she liked that idea and that she would come and visit her a lot and stuff like that. But, you know, we explained to her that we thought that might be the best option because there would be someone there to help her with her medications and things like that, and monitor her if they knew she wasn't taking them. You know, if she started acting kind of funny or anything like that. Because she has to get ride transportation, like she has to pay for it. So, you know, she can't just have any transportation whenever she wants. She has to let them know like 4 days in advance. And then I think it's like a really low fee, I think, for transportation.
Okay. Is she getting nutrition? She's 80. She's a BMI of 15. Is that what I saw?
She's 78 and 82 pounds.
She's 82 pounds.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
her
she's very
BMI
little.
15? Did I see that?
Yeah, she's very little.
It was like 15.03, I think.
Okay, and there is indication that she's eating even though she has oral health concerns?
Yes. We looked in the fridge and there's food in the fridge, just
A lot. They have a lot of food. I mean, it's either, what I'm thinking is that the food is there and she can't eat the food, but I'm just thinking that maybe she's not eating as much or anything because she feels like she's at their home and she doesn't want to take their food or eat some of their food. So I told her that she could apply for food stamps. Even if she does live with the daughter, she can say that she, you know, has to get her own food. Because at first they didn't know that she could get food stamps because she was living with the daughter and they thought that she couldn't get them. And so we've applied for the food stamps now so she can at least get her own food, or, you know, feel like it's hers and maybe she could eat more. Because I'm thinking maybe she just didn't eat that much because she doesn't want to like eat their food or feel like it's not her food. You know what I mean?
I do.
Sorry. Katie had mentioned before that she has to call ahead for transportation to her appointments, and it just APS was called on her daughter before because she wouldn't pick up her mother from appointments, and she left her mother at Traeger and multiple times at appointments where they couldn't reach her daughter telephone or anything, so they would have to call the hospital and have this patient transferred to the hospital until someone can come pick her up because they couldn't reach the daughter. So I think that's why APS was called on the daughter the first time, and that's how she got connected to having to pay for transportation to her appointments and stuff like that. So
that was the agreement after APS came and did an investigation?
I don't think APS ever
They
went
never
in there with her.
investigated.
Yeah, I don't think it ever got investigated.
Okay. All right. So the first question was about housing. So there's also a concern that she has severe dementia. Is that what the term was used? Severe? Okay, so is there a possibility that she could have someone, other support that the family members could come and support her in their home? Do they have the capacity to do that?
You mean like if she was to have her own home?
Yes.
Yes, the daughter said that if we could find her a place that is, really close to her, that she would go over there, all the time and help her and make sure she was taking her medications and things like that.
Okay. So I think that part of it is, does anybody else have there's someone else that raised their hand. Is that correct? Bobby?
Yes, hi. So I have a couple questions. So one would be, how does the daughter feel about taking care of the mom? Is she willing to do that if she has to stay there with her, with all her medical necessities? And has anyone ever had a conversation with her as far as like, if she had a bedroom suit or something similar to look like a bed, would that be more comforting for her? Since she's sleeping on an air mattress, that may make her feel out of sort.
Yes. So I don't know, did Kayla or Katie hear the question?
I don't know if the area is big enough for I guess if it's big enough for an air mattress, it would be big enough for a bed. But it's almost the way that she is talking to us, she doesn't want to be there anymore. And she's, even if she was offered a bed, I don't think that she would want to stay there anymore. Like she's really getting bad to where, every time we talk to her, that's all she says. And she almost gets angry with us if we can't find her another place. And she doesn't want to do anything else but find another place first.
Okay. Thank you.
I think Melissa also wanted to say something here. I know we're running short on time. So Melissa, was that?
Yes, it's just a suggestion. Some of the memory care units, their rooms look like little apartments. The problem is Medicaid or Medicare doesn't normally pay for a private room. So it would be like she would have a roommate. So you might present to her, there's this place that has an apartment, but you would have a roommate, and see if she would be willing to take a look at it with you. If it's somebody that she can get along with, then she may like that and feel like she has her own place. But it couldn't, I think that you would have to be really choosy which ones you present to her. You would have to really do some research, see if they will take her, see if they accept Medicaid. I mean, there's a lot to go into that, but you could ask her about a possible roommate situation and see if she's willing to do that. She may not be, but I have real concerns about the daughter saying, I'll go over, I'll make sure she's eating, I'll make sure she has her medications. And the reason I have that concern is that that's really not happening, and she's right there in the house with her. And it's no disrespect to the daughter. I mean, if she's working and she has kids, and I know she's probably busy as well. But if it's not happening under her roof, it's not going to happen if the mom lives down the street. So that's a huge concern for me. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And so is there a surrogate? Is there a healthcare surrogate in her? I mean, I know that the daughter's the power of attorney, but is she also the healthcare surrogate?
Is that the advance directive?
It's individual who's going to be able to make healthcare decisions for them.
Oh, she is. I think so.
Mm-hmm.
She is. Okay. So I think the idea is that if there's also a pattern of leaving someone at a clinic too, that also suggests that whatever circumstances can cause, to take care of another, there's problems there, right? Whether it's inability or other circumstances. So, looking into all the circumstances for all the various options and trying to get a sense of what is it that is the concern about living on one's own, living in a nursing home, what are the barriers, and then what are the things that would facilitate her health and well-being. with a team, as you know, with a team of individuals that could help the interdisciplinary team, getting them all together, having a family meeting, discussing all the possibilities might be something that would be useful. Any final comments from anyone? We have maybe 1 minute for a final comment.
I can't. Go ahead, Nikki. I'll yield to you.
Oh, I was concerned about, I think Katie said that she gets $800 a month, but she pays her daughter $300. I would be concerned about any kind of financial exploitation on that. Is she gonna have to charge her if she moves? Will she get to keep that $300? So is that coming out of the $800 that she gets?
Yeah, the 300's coming out of the $800 that she gets.
So she would keep that $800 and not have to pay her daughter anything?
I hope so. I don't know, but hopefully that would be the case.
So that would be part of a budget that have to be discussed as you're looking for the options of living alone, living in a memory care unit, what support is needed, those types of things.
Well, in a memory care unit, they will take that $800 all but 40. That's what happens when you go into a facility and you're on Medicaid and Medicare. So she will get to keep $40 for personal items and the rest will go to the facility.
Okay, it's good to know. All right. At this time, we're going to go on and close the case presentation. We thank you so much. That's a very complicated case. Hope that you're able to work with the family on getting the individual the well-being and safety and protection that they need and joy in their life. So thank you so much for that presentation. We are going to be moving on to our Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities. I think that Mona is going to take on leading this part of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. So if you'll go ahead, as I mentioned before, our purpose is to train and empower stakeholders and community members to provide hope and education for their communities. And I think today's presentation has helped us see how important it is for us to understand. And I couldn't help but think of one of the comments that Nikki made when she was presenting, let's not neglect the neglect. So I think that we really need to be looking at this whole situation very carefully, as many of you have said. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. So, wow, what did you learn today? And who will you share with what you learned? So just unmute yourself and quickly say something. Even if you have another question or another comment that you think would be pertinent, feel free to do that.
Well, I don't mean to be chatty Cathy today. I'm so sorry, you guys.
No, you're fine.
One of the things, and I've mentioned this before, that we're looking at in the new division of substance use disorders is substance use disorders and how it affects older adults. So part of what I've learned today and is, some of the things we have to consider, as well as is there a substance use disorder involved? We have to consider everything, every aspect. Is something else going on that we're missing, some sort of abuse or neglect? Are we missing something there? So that's one way it helps me. And Nikki, I remember your name. I did field social work in Jefferson County when you were on the LPD. And so I remember your name, and you had always had such a good reputation and worked with us really well. And I just want to thank you for that. And I'll
thank
hush
you,
now.
Yeah, I think that this case makes us see in a really wide range of all the things that may be going on. Sarah, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm traveling, so it might be a little shaky as far as my voice, but I'm in the second cohort with the paraprofessional program through Traeger. And this is my first meeting with you guys here in this particular conference. And I just wanted to say, you know, I really appreciate y'all being here and having it open to me. And I've enjoyed watching you guys and y'all go through the process and, you know, like collaborating together on the best options for these patients. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thank you, Sarah. And we're thankful you're here with us and know that you'll be taking out into our communities what you learn. And that's what we're all about. Okay, anyone else have a comment here? Okay, so we're learning about neglect. So what are we going to do with that? You know, one of the things that I like to, when I leave a meeting, I like to have a next step. And so I learned some things today. And what can I do to help this get out into the community? So that's my question to you. How can you share with the overall community what you learned today? Or do you know of an event that you could help lead or participate in that would help you practice what was learned? So again, I'll be quiet, just open up and share with us.
We could share the recording of the presentation with our colleagues, our family members, our friends.
Thank you, Pam. Yeah, I would not feel comfortable that I could go out and teach this, but I can get it out that way. Thank you for that idea.
Yes.
Mona, there are so many like AARP and older groups that meet occasionally throughout the whole state. And what I did on the Crimes Against Seniors unit, I went out to educate as many of these people as I could, because they're going to be the gatekeepers to see this and be able to share this with their family, friends, coworkers, or whatever. So any kind of groups that you can talk to, education is the key.
You are right. And that's what we want to do, is to be able to educate. And I think one of the most important things that we can teach is a combination of what you and Melissa said, is that we're looking at the wide picture. I mean, just bringing up the fact that the medication could be used other than for the family is something many of us would never even thought of. At one point I worked for a vet, and we had a person coming in getting medication for her dog that she was actually selling, that we finally found out about. So that, you know, you just have to look really wide and think, but not, we don't want to have an evil mind, but yet at the same time, we need to be very proactive. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. I want us to have a time that we can share our events and our concerns. And one of the things that I wrote down is for us to become this community of compassion, and to be able to look out and see where folks are needing help. Now, I'm going to go from the other side and say, what if this daughter is really doing the very best that she knows how, and for whatever reason, putting her mother in that little corner on an air mattress seems to be the appropriate thing. So how can we, as a community of compassionate folks, help her by figuring out a way to provide a bed and then some other things? So let's just talk about that for a moment. How can we be more compassionate?
I think one way to be more compassionate is to, you know, actually just meet with the daughter, if the mother, if they can, and ask her what does she need, what can we do for her?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bobby, I like that tactic. I was like chewing on a similar idea because I feel like if we just like go to her and say, you're not doing a good job, like do better, she's going to feel very defensive and irritable, right? So I think like maybe a strengths-based approach, like these, you know, you're doing so good, you have so much on your plate, blah blah blah, but have you thought about this? You know, trying to
How
make
can
sure
we
that
help
she-
you with this?
yeah.
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 Very good,
And
Rachel.
yeah, and because also when we're thinking about it, we have to consider the culture. Like, you know, maybe the daughter is doing the best that she can. Maybe from her culture, where she's resilient and she's trying to juggle all these different things. And the best thing she could do is get the air mattress for the mom. So just really just, you know, hey, well, how can we help you?
That, well, yeah, and you bring up like the culture, and I was thinking about that as well, because I was recently advised. I think we saw this case presented a couple weeks ago at Traeger as well. One of my other colleagues said that, you know, like culturally, the daughter is probably like feeling attacked because apparently like within that community, there's like a sort of expectation that you take care of your parents. And so I feel like the daughter does need support, because if she's, you know, kind of being guilted into doing something that she's really not able to do her best at, and then, you know, culturally she's being shamed as well, there's just like a lot to consider.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Okay, so I took that a little further than I meant to when I came over to this slide, but does anyone have any events that are coming up that you'd like us to know about? And please know that you can send events to Justin ahead of time, and we will actually have them on the slides in the future as well. Okay, let's go on.
I'm just going to put an event that I'm hosting tonight in Louisville. I don't know if this would be interesting to people, but I'm bringing together a palliative care storyteller and musician from Canada. It's called the Nights of Grief and Mystery. It's at the Kentucky Country Day Theater. The show starts at 7:30. There's more information and tickets are available in the chat. It's going to be interesting. It's hard to describe, but if there's videos and things on the website if you're interested.
Thank you, Justin. Anyone else got an event? Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Just want to share with you some of the things that we do at the Traeger Institute. On every Monday night, we have an education and support meeting by way of Zoom called My Health Matters, and so does yours. And we have a guest speaker most nights, although sometimes we do have open forum, and some nights I will speak rather than having a guest speaker in. But we always have something that's interesting, and then we have a time of discussion and being able to support each other. This coming Monday night, we are going to be hearing from a resident from University of Pikeville who's coming to talk to us about tips on good lung health. And I know we're thinking, yeah, we need those lungs to breathe, but we really need those lungs for lots of things. So for us to learn how to care for them in more ways than just not smoking, I think will be interesting for us. The Flourishing Together classes is a 10-week free class. Oh, I thought I went there and changed that. I must not have saved my change. We are doing them virtually, but we're also doing them face-to-face, and we're also doing them hybrid. So what we are doing with the Flourishing Together is that we have a person that may want to become healthier for whatever reason, and we encourage them to bring someone with them to make their own team. However, if that person says, I don't have anyone, or I don't feel comfortable asking someone, we encourage them to come on, and they will become a part of a new team and learn new family and friends. And what we're going to do in this 10-week class is we're going to learn very easy and practical ways to eat healthier, how to become more active, and how to take control of our health conditions. We do it from a holistic perspective, and we do talk an awful lot about self-management. We talk about mental health and how to care for ourselves, problem solving. And so we really have a lot of fun, and we do it this team concept with some friendly competition. So that's fun too. And then at the Traeger Institute, they have the Flourish program. And what that is when a person has several chronic conditions, they can have a health navigator assigned to them that will help them understand their diagnosis and the things that they might do to become healthier. We have a caregiver program that's designed for the caregivers of adults aging 60 and above to provide support and resources. And we know that caregiving is really hard work, and it is easy to have burnout and perhaps to react in ways that we're not always happy about with ourselves. So we want to help our resources to have the self-care and the resources that they need so they can do this job in a joyful way, even though it is a very difficult job. And then we have our friendly virtual friendly visitor program. And what this is for those folks who are feeling isolated and lonely. And we have a number of our practicum students who call them and just give them the encouragement that they need. So all of those programs are to help our people become healthier. If any of you are interested in becoming a virtual friendly person or a facilitator for the Flourishing Together, please just let us know. We would love to talk to you about that. Okay, just threw up here the schedule for November and December for My Health Matters. So when you get your PowerPoint from Justin, you can look at it and say, oh yeah, there's one I would really like to go to. And if any of you would like to speak in January, February, or March, the next week, I'm going to start putting those schedules together. So just send me an email and say, I would love to talk about such and such. Or maybe you might say to me, I would really like to learn more about a subject, and let me know what that is, and we'll find a speaker. Okay, Justin. And our Optimal Aging Conference is coming up in April 15th and 18th. And it's not too early to put it on your calendar, because if your calendar looks like most of our calendars, you're already working those dates. So put it on your calendar for the 15th and 18th. And we are looking for proposals, submissions, and those are due by December 2nd. And there's the information and the person to whom to speak if you are interested in presenting at our conference. It is an international conference. I don't know how many of you have had the pleasure of being there, but you can really learn an awful lot, and you have lots of different breakout groups that you can choose to go to. Okay, and there it is talking about it again. And so, as we close, we want to just talk about our pledge a little bit. Our pledge came about as we were understanding that we wanted our state to become a healthier state. I often say, and if you've heard me speak very often, I am concerned with the health outcomes of our state in Kentucky. But I feel like we are really better than that. And that if we become better educated, and if we help our communities and our families and our individuals, that we can see our outcomes get better. So from that end, we want to become an effective state coalition working with community members and community-based organizations to empower our state to become a healthier and compassionate people. Therefore, we will practice self-care and model healthy behaviors to our families and our coworkers and our members of our communities. In other words, we must practice what we preach. So we need to try to stay healthy and take care of ourselves, not only for ourselves and our families, but for all of those around us. So I'm going to turn it back over to Pam or Justin, whoever's going to talk to us now.
Justin, did you want me to do it? All right, so we're gonna ask that you go in and complete a 1-minute evaluation. We do ask you to look very closely at the response options. 1 is not at all, and 5 is a great deal. And so it should be presenting on your screen as we speak. We ask that you go in and complete that and then submit it. All righty. And we wanted to let you know that our next Project Echo is going to be December 9th. We're going to be talking about, we're going to have a quarterly time with KCHC. And so we'll have our first presentation will be on nutrition security for older adults. And then our quarterly KCHC speaker will be Home for the Holidays. We'll be talking about Home for the Holidays. And then on January 20th, we'll be returning after the holidays to talk about what matters most. And if you'd like to join our email address, go on and open up your phone and point your camera at the QR code and go on and complete the survey there. We thank you so much. We thank Nikki for her wonderful presentation and getting us to think more deeply about not neglecting neglect and thinking about all the warning signs and incorporating that into our work and our practice and taking that to the community and our colleagues. We thank the whole community for all their suggestions, and we wish Katie and Kayla the best with the client and their family. All right, thank you so much. We'll see you the next time, December 9th.